Warning. This is a warning video. It has been made because something is happening. This is not a shock scare video intended to cause panic or undue scare in people. The things we are going to show you in this video are real, documented, substantiated and verifiable. Please forgive us for the computer voice used in this video. It was used to make compiling all the various clips easier and faster, as reading from notes and recordings would be much more tedious.
Significant. So this is the actual discovery image. Basically, two astronomers were looking one little patch of sky very, very far away, looking for exactly this kind of thing. Stars don't move. Planets or anything that's like a planet does. So this is color-coded. This is what they saw on different nights. They're looking for one thing moving. They color-coded it to show that all these stars are staying still. This thing is moving, and the way it's moving...
So this is just one...
It's one object, color-coded.
Is Pluto on this?
Pluto's in a whole different part of the sky.
So this is way out there.
This is way out there. This is more than twice as far away as Pluto.
Unbelievable. Why does this matter, Corey?
Well, there are two ways you can look at it. I think I look at it first of all as an exploration question. That we know where we are on Earth. We've mapped our planet. Our solar system is still terra incognita. It's full of surprises. This object is something that astronomers said shouldn't even be there. There's a whole other solar system beyond the planets that we know that are full of these things that are sort of planets, sort of comets. Some of them they call dwarf planets. That's what they're calling this one. What we're seeing is we're seeing our neighborhood. We're seeing what's around us. And then the second part, we're seeing where we came from.
For the first time in 170 years, evidence of this ninth planet was found on the far edge of the system. Astronomers at the California Institute of Technology have not directly seen it yet, but they think it's up to 10 times bigger than Earth and 20 times farther away than Neptune.
Here, it is important to make a point. In the year 2014, the Nibiru dark star, also called Planet X, was not way out there at the outer reaches of our solar system, near Pluto. It was at a 90-degree angle to our planet, across from Earth on the lower ecliptic plane. Planet X, or Nibiru, is on a very long elliptical 3,600-year orbit. The problem is, that we, the people, particularly in the United States, are continuously being lied to by those in power. The world's governments all know about Planet X, and have for many years. The earliest documented discovery of Planet X, by astronomers, was in the 1950s. When Planet X was first sighted by astronomers, it was at the outer reaches of our solar system. But it is now 2017. In the year 2014, when mainstream media news starting airing stories about Nibiru, it is because of where Nibiru was in relation to the Earth. The Nibiru system, with its 7 orbiting planets, moons and its own sun, could be seen by anyone with a telescope. The cover-up began. NASA and the United States government had to admit something. But they would not admit that it was this gigantic dark star 10 times the size of Earth, heading our way, getting closer and closer.
Two scientists at Caltech say they've discovered a 9th planet in the outer corners of our solar system.
It's pretty exciting to know it's out there and waiting to be found. 2 years ago, we realized that there was something funny going on in the outer solar system.
Aside from mainstream news in the United States, Russia not only tells their people about Planet X, but Russia is also making preparations for their people.
На этой неделе на небе появился новый объект, слабая красноватая точка. Пока ее наблюдают только астрономы, но уже к маю 2011 года ее можно будет увидеть и невооруженным глазом. Это темная планета, она же Нибиру, таинственная часть нашей Солнечной системы. Вероятность ее существования НАСА признала лишь в 1982 году, при том, что шумеры еще 5000 лет назад уже называли ее крылатым диском и утверждали, что появление Нибиру на небосклоне сулит одни неприятности. Какие именно, выяснил Александр Огородников.
Может ли небо упасть на Землю? Вопрос уже не актуальный. Прогрессивное человечество ждет более грандиозного события – падения на Землю другой планеты. Конечно, не в прямом смысле слова, но планета Нибиру подлетит к нам так близко, что последствия могут быть катастрофическими. Дело в том, что Нибиру, или как еще ее называют планета X, гораздо крупнее Земли, а значит, ее гравитационное поле гораздо сильнее. Его разрушительное влияние мы почувствуем в конце 2012 года, когда сближение будет максимальным. Как следствие, изменение наклона нашей планеты, а соответственно и полюсов. Глобальное похолодание там, где сейчас тепло, и очередной всемирный потоп. 2/3 населения нашей планеты попросту погибнет. Согласно одной из теорий, Нибиру – это планета богов. В древних текстах их еще называли анунаки, то есть сошедшие с небес.
Раз в 3600 лет она якобы появляется, приближается к Солнечной системе, к Земле.
Согласно некоторым расчетам, к 2011 году темную планету будет видно
в 5 раз пройдет по орбите в опасной близости от нашей планеты. Сила его притяжения будет настолько мощной, что Земля может поменять наклон. Если это случится, то изменившаяся ось вызовет смену магнитных полюсов. И тогда на планету обрушатся невиданные силы наводнения и извержения вулкана, сметающие все на своем пути смерчи и землетрясения. Это Захарий Ситчин, знаменитый американский ученый. В 1978 году Ситчин делает сенсационное заявление. В Солнечной системе вовсе не 9 планет, как считает официальная наука, а 10. По утверждению ученого, кроме всем известных планет, существует еще одна – Нибиру. Она блуждает в космосе по невероятно вытянутой орбите и проходит через Солнечную систему раз в 3600 лет. К теории Захария Ситчина в научном сообществе отнеслись с недоверием. Астрономы не могли поверить в то, чего не видно в космическом пространстве даже в самые мощные телескопы. Однако уже в начале 80-х, после длительных математических вычислений и построения компьютерных моделей, существование планеты Нибиру было доказано.
В 1982 году НАСА допустило существование большой планеты, которой впоследствии было дано название Нибиру.
В 2005 году американские астрофизики заявили, что на расстоянии приблизительно в 1 световой год от Земли располагается огромное космическое тело. Но главное, на огромной скорости оно приближается к нашей планете. Небесное тело настолько темное, что ни оптические телескопы, ни другие приборы не в состоянии его увидеть. Зафиксировать загадочный космический объект ученые смогли лишь 2 года назад, когда на земную орбиту вышел новый сверхмощный инфракрасный телескоп. То, что увидели астрономы на расшифрованных снимках, сделанных с телескопа, надолго повергло их в шок. В черной пустоте космического пространства четко угадывались очертания огромной планеты. Сомнений уже не оставалось. Это Нибиру.
Инфракрасный спутник, который действительно засек объект достаточно больших размеров, и ему удалось этот объект не только засечь, но и как-то зафиксировать, сфотографировать.
После изучения параметров и траектории движения гигантской планеты, ученые пришли к неутешительному выводу. Нибиру больше Земли в 5 раз. Но самое страшное, через 3 года она может пролететь в нескольких сотнях километров от Земли. Находясь так близко к нашей планете, она запросто сможет сорвать с нее атмосферу. По словам ученых, правительство просто скрывает от человечества правду, чтобы не вызывать панику.
According to United States scientists, the government simply hides the truth from humanity, that they would not cause panic.
Представители всех военных разведок мира эту информацию о том, что Нибиру может принести значительный ущерб, урон, разрушение и даже гибель жителей Земли, имеют. А не разглашается эта информация и не становится достоянием общественности только лишь потому, что НАСА и все эти структуры хотят спасти...
Here in our solar system, evidence is mounting that either a brown dwarf star or a gas giant planet is lurking at the outermost reaches of our solar system.
At the outermost reaches of our solar system.
At the outermost reaches of our solar system.
We apologize for the slowdown in the audio. It is intended to draw the viewer's attention to the bold-faced lies of our mainstream media.
Far beyond the planet Pluto. According to the British newspaper, The Independent, the object is 4 times the size of Jupiter. Experts say the presence of such a massive object could explain why a barrage of comets has been coming from that direction. Why a barrage of comets has been coming from that direction.
There's a giant asteroid flying towards Earth. Detected by a Russian robotic telescope, it's one of the largest and most dangerous space rocks approaching our planet's orbit. RT's Murad Gaziev looks at the threat from the void.
Humanity's last experience with a large asteroid was painful. Almost 2 years ago, the Chelyabinsk meteor, traveling at 19 kilometers a second, exploded in the skies above Russia. The blast was dozens of times more powerful than an atomic bomb. But that meteor was only 20 or so meters in diameter, weighing about as much as the Eiffel Tower. This new asteroid is an entirely different story. It's 20 times bigger, the size of a village, weighing millions of times more. If this asteroid, for now called 2014 UR116, flew into our atmosphere, it wouldn't just burn up in the air and shatter windows. This would hit the planet's surface, potentially killing millions. But calm for now. It's not yet on a collision course with Earth. The danger is, as it passes near planets and the sun, gravity could alter its path. In fact, the Russian Space Agency, which detected UR116, has satellites watching just for such objects. And it's not only Russia. An American observatory a decade ago detected another similar asteroid. There was a big scare about that, if you remember. Apophis was named after the Egyptian god of evil, and asteroids that size hit Earth on average once in 80,000 years. NASA gave it a very real chance of impacting our planet, though that was later revised down. But the danger from asteroids is very real, and astronomers are increasingly keeping an eye out and thinking about what to do if they confirm a collision course, though don't expect anything quite as dramatic as Bruce Willis leading his team of misfits to save the world.
Fortunately, in America, we do have those among us who are willing to expose the truth. From amateur astronomers and university astronomers, to NASA leakers, to investigators who have dedicated their lives to researching, investigating and fact-gathering, to bring the truth to the people.
So let's go ahead and bring David on board with us, and we'll get this thing going. David, welcome back to Late Night in the Midlands. How are you tonight?
Fine, doing great, Michael. Thank you for a wonderful introduction.
Well, thank you for taking the time out on a Friday night at that to be with us here. I appreciate it, and I'm looking forward to learning more about this Planet X and where we are in all this. But I thought maybe first give us a quick roundabout on how you got interest in this. What made you one day say this is real and I've got to research it?
Well, I would say, you know, when I first learned about Planet X or Nibiru, the Nemesis system, I was fortunate enough to hear a couple of interviews with John Moore, the private investigator who spent a few years with the DOD, but he now lives in the Arkansas Ozarks. And I overheard his interviews and talks about the Navy veterans, the sub-veterans and so forth, the brass that had retired in around where he currently lives and works. And he said they were told that there was going to be a cataclysmic event that would occur down the road, and that they should be living at least a couple hundred miles inland and at least 700-800 feet above sea level, and the Ozarks are perfect for that, and away from any major cities and fault lines. So, and he basically interviewed them, he said, by the technique of blinking the eyes, because they'd all signed non-disclosure agreements. So anyway, he related this in a number of talks that he's done at hotels and various events. And I found that very, very interesting. And I was very curious as to what the causative factor might be. I am also very familiar with the fact that the Pentagon, as of the day before 9/11, announced through Don Rumsfeld that they had misplaced or lost $2.2 trillion, and they didn't know where it was. And that's an awful lot of money. You can't money launder that kind of money. And that's the black ops budget of the large alphabet agencies is only about $50 billion a year. 2.2 trillion is stratospheric. So you put two and two together, like they said in Watergate, you follow the money. That obviously I discovered after just a minor amount of research. I was led to contact with Phil Schneider and some of his background. Of course, he's passed away, and somewhat mysteriously perhaps, but anyway, he was involved in an engineering aspect, an engineering position as a contractor, as a civilian contractor, and he was involved in building a lot of these deep underground military bases, and that's where the money is gone. In fact, the money that's missing now is closer to $6.5 trillion. So you just put everything together. You put all it's multiple jigsaw problem solving. And it didn't take me long after that to, I contacted a friend of mine in Paris who is a professional astronomer with a large observatory, and I told him I had overheard John Moore talk about Planet X, and I said, is it real? He said, I've seen it, and he told me the name of the observatory he's seen it at. And he said he had a secret film of it, which he later sent me. He had taken it with his, phone, and it's an actual photograph of the system, and he got it out of the observatory at a very high level, and has shared it with me since. I have not shared it with the public, but I have seen it. Now Marshall Masters, who's a colleague of mine, and I've talked to him from time to time, he recently sent a photograph that makes it appear that Planet X is currently right over the North Pole. He was sent a photograph by an individual who was flying out west over the state of Utah, over a proving ground, I think. And what happened was they were about 25,000 feet above sea level. And you really have to be that high to get a really good photograph of the Planet X system. Occasionally you can get a good atmospheric photograph, but there's so much distortion in the atmosphere, and then you have the chemtrails, and of course you can only see it around sunrise and sunset in certain locations, and best from the southern hemisphere, and you know the whole story on that. And you can only see it in the infrared region if you have a telescope, and you have to have a very, highly advanced infrared telescope like the Vatican. So in any case, these people were flying above Utah, and they took a very obvious photograph of both the sun and, in the distance, Planet X. He analyzed it, and he's very good at photographic analysis. And I have a 3-page analysis of it in my files. I have the picture, and it's one of the best photographs I've ever seen of the Planet X Nibiru system. And it's not a lens flare. It's not a distortion. It was taken through an aircraft plexiglass window, and it's just right on spot. So the sightings are increasing, in my opinion.
This interview with Nibiru investigator David Mead is 1 hour and 40 minutes long. We need to keep this video as short as we can, while still explaining what is about to occur. To see David Mead's entire interview and other Nibiru documentaries, you can visit his website at writerswebservices.com.
Right. Well, just to give you a little background, it's a mini constellation. It consists of a dark star, smaller than our sun, which hosts 7 orbiting bodies, some smaller than our moon, a couple of them larger than our Earth. The dark star is called Nemesis. Some people also call it Planet X. The blue planet is called the blue Kachina. The planet that's larger than the Earth that's orbiting the dark star is called Nibiru. That's also known as the planet of the crossing, according to the ancient Sumerians, and the destroyer. And there's another object, some refer to it as Helion. There's a couple other objects. But it's a very small solar system that, has this 3,600 to 4,000 year elliptical orbit. 74% of all, of every sun in our solar system, in the Milky Way galaxy, they have binary partners. And this is our binary partner. 16% have trinary partners.
Ooh, trinary. All right, and so where is it in our time frame, and when are you? 2017? Is that what you're thinking, or no?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I've triangulated the date using Stellarium, which is a free desktop application that uses math based on Kepler's laws to confirm everything. I basically decoded Revelation 12:1 and 2. I came to September 23rd of 2017, which also happens to be Rosh Hashanah, the beginning of the Jewish, civil New Year. And then from that point on, I used the sixth seal of Revelation to triangulate it further and down the road to October. In other words, what happens is I can explain this in very brief form. It's a little complex, but I'll try to synopsize it in 100 words or less. You've got to do 2 different triangulations on this object if you want to, interpret the apocalypse, the book of Revelation properly. So what happens is, in 2017, you need 4 conditions met in 12:1 and 2, Revelation 12:1 and 2. 1, the object, what is seen in the sky must be clothed in the sun. Well, we have a check on that. We have the moon at her feet. We have a check on that. Giving birth to the male child. Now, in other years, she gives birth to other planets like Mercury, Saturn, or Venus, but only in 2017 is the Virgo constellation giving birth to Jupiter, the king planet. And amazingly, Jupiter will have been in Virgo's womb for the exact length of human gestation, a little over 300 days. And Jupiter is precisely between her legs and below her womb on September 23rd. There's also a crown of 12 stars. Virgo the Virgin is always crowned with Leo the Lion, which is 9 stars. But in 2017, there are 3 more, Mercury, Mars, and Venus. So we have a check on that. So that's Revelation 12:1 and 2. I'll just repeat the scripture real quick. A great sign appeared in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, with the moon under her feet, a crown of 12 stars on her head. She was pregnant, cried out in pain, and she was about to give birth. So what happened is John, who wrote this in 90 A.D., and remember, this Jesus was long gone by then, and the most of the apostles were gone. I think they were all gone except for John. So he's writing about the future. He's not talking about the past.
At the end of this informational video we will include a clip that shows you how the Bible, Revelation 12 prophecy, precisely shows what is happening. There is a great sign in the heavens. Our Creator is giving fair warning, and we will reveal it to you at the end of the video.
And Revelation 12:1 and 2 is called a great sign. If you look in Luke 21, Jesus said there would be great signs, and it's the last great sign, and it happens to be in the book of Revelation. If you look at the original Greek, it is a great sign. So it's extremely important. It's a time marker. But a lot of these articles also, I must say that I'm saying that everything's going to happen on September 23rd. Nothing's going to happen except that sign is going to be in the sky over Jerusalem at dawn. Now that's major. That's major because I think what it could represent is the end of a 2,000-year church age and the beginning of what's called the Day of the Lord. What's happening is in the sixth seal of Revelation, you have a number of events. In this sixth seal of Revelation has the seals, the trumpets, and the bowl judgments. The trumpet judgments are the first half of the 7-year tribulation period. The bowl judgments are the last 3.5 years. The sixth seal opens up, it triggers the exact date of the tribulation itself, in my opinion, and most Bible scholars agree with this. So let's say that that's true for purposes of argument. When does it happen? Well, I note that the sixth seal has to occur on a full moon, and it has to occur before the Virgo pregnancy that we've been discussing with the king planet Jupiter in the womb of the Virgo constellation. It has to occur before that exits. When does it exit? It exits it exits October 13th. So it's got to be between September 23rd and October 13th. Now, the only full moon that happens in that frame of time is October 5th. And the description of the sixth seal in Revelation is such that there is a blood moon and the sun is darkened. So we've got to consider that as the actual date where Planet X appears in the sky and eclipses the sun, and it will be visible at that point. So that's the actual date, not September 23rd.
All right, so all this hype about September 23rd is just that. I mean, it seems like every year, September. Everybody predicts we're going to all die in September. And that's
right. Yeah.
And so far, that's not been the case. I hope it stays that way. But so if you were somebody who didn't go by the Bible or didn't see things that way, what else other than the Bible? Now you said you've seen a video, but other people haven't seen that video. So what can people go by to say, yeah, this guy's right, and he's telling the truth about this? Where can people go to see, convince themselves that this is coming?
Well, that's an extremely good question. 2017 is the year of Planet X, and during a recent media interview I had with Marshall Masters, he told me that two other very prominent researchers had also pinpointed the fall of 2017 as the arrival time of Planet X. One is Major Ed Dames, who's former head of the Remote Viewing Project, a joint venture between the Pentagon and the CIA. The second is the renowned and well-connected Bob Dean, a former group of good old boys whose network of insiders, follows the initial discovery of Planet X dating back to the 80s. So Bob reportedly was asked by one of them, did our infrared equipment, they were referring to the IRIS satellite in '83, detect Planet X? And they retorted, not just yes, but hell yes. So I would say 2017 is highly meaningful. It correlates.
Here, it is important to note that predicting a date for when Nibiru will come close enough to Earth for it to wreak destruction is very difficult. In the years of 2012, 2014, 2015, and 2016, Nibiru was expected to be close enough to Earth that it would be dealing its destructive damage to the Earth. The problem with determining the arrival time is that Nibiru's orbit is not regular. As Nibiru approached our Sun in 2014, its orbit began to slow some. Our Sun's magnetic force has interacted with the magnetic force of Nibiru. Other of our own planets are also mingled in with Nibiru, and they also have magnetic and gravitational effects on the dark star, Nibiru. In the year of 2016, it is calculated that Nibiru moved only 3 degrees, because of these various pulls on it. Even so, Nibiru continues its orbit around behind our Sun right now, and soon is expected to move beyond the point of its slowdown. Later in this video, we will show a clip of an astronomer who explains where Nibiru is, what it is doing, what it will do next, and when it is predicted to do so.
That Planet X, also known as Nibiru, is moving in a precise direction towards planet Earth. So what does this suggest for those of us who dwell on this planet? Is there actually a biblical link that correlates with the end times as we know it? Many of you believe that NASA and other government bodies, such as the Pentagon and the CIA, are aware of its approach. The approach of the mysterious planet Nibiru is at present sending waves of charged plasmatic energy particles through our solar system. The flow of energy will finally affect the core flows of the Earth and result in catastrophic changes in Earth's climate, which is without a doubt occurring on an escalated scale. Planet Earth has been feeling the effects of this inbound planet or system of planets since 1996, with records showing a troublesome increase in seismic and volcanic activity, extreme weather patterns, and catastrophic disasters. U.S. and Russian governments are aware of its approach, as is the Vatican hierarchy, which is keeping a watchful eye on the heavens with their sophisticated telescope perched high in the mountains of Arizona. In the meantime, the public is being kept in the dark regarding this approaching apocalypse. The consensus by many is that such an event would annihilate 2/3 of the world's population, while 2/3 of those who survive the initial impact will perish over time due to starvation and exposure to the elements. The question that persists with respect to Planet X is whether this mysterious planet that scientists now claim exists beyond Pluto is the same planet that is believed to have wiped out much of humanity thousands of years ago. There is an understanding that an approaching large body or a star system of planets and moons can trigger considerable differences in magnetic activity, and recent data from our magnetosphere indicates that this is what is now taking place. There were even suggestions that Google Sky had revealed an area in space that had been censored by NASA, showing the winged globe moving through our solar system. So are these subtle warnings an earnest attempt to inform us that an apocalyptic situation is at hand, which is coming from out of this world, something previously unknown to humanity, but which have memories in our subconscious from past lives and records kept over the ages? If we consider the ancient era of Atlantis and Lemuria and what happened to these civilizations, is it any wonder that NASA would redact the location of this incoming body on Google Sky or in their own imagery? Every week, NASA appears to have learned something new that was unimaginable, and yet they want us to imagine that Planet X Nibiru is unreal. As you can envision, the gravitational consequences of a sizable planet moving close to the inner solar system would spell huge problems for planet Earth. Not only are we witnessing climate extremes and a shifting of the Earth, but we are now bearing witness to the very real observations that the four seasons, as we have known them, are now blending. So with all of this in mind, we can now ascertain why certain governments are taking steps to protect their own interests as they prepare for the arrival and the aftermath of this large planetary body or system of planets moving through our solar system. Here is some news that has been widely reported, but which some of you may not be aware of. Russia recently completed building or updating some 5,000 shelters in Moscow. They actually have been quite open about what they are doing, but they haven't specifically stated the actual reason for constructing or updating these shelters. But we do know that they have some facilities that can accommodate up to 100,000 people. The United States is estimated to have over 150 deep underground military bases. Coincidentally, a huge military underground city exists below the Denver airport. Now, these are entire underground cities that have been under construction since the 1980s. But this is a need-to-know classification that is underway and is never published in advance for fear of destabilizing the economy. If you do any research of this topic, you are bound to run into various forms of disinformation. Now, some of it intentional, but much of it produced by uneducated individuals within the public. Have you ever wondered what the real purpose of the Hubble Space Telescope was intended for? It was not to explore the universe and the solar system, as some have suggested. Rather, the reason for constructing this multi-billion-dollar telescope and then placing it in orbit was for the purpose of observing the inbound Planet X. A June 6th interview with a Hubble insider states this fact as to the Hubble's purpose. He watched this mysterious body through the Hubble telescope and stated that this thing looked as if it was nearby, and the Hubble got cut off and they encrypted it, and that was the end of any transmission. So let's listen to this interview.
Back in the 1950s, most people aren't aware of it, but there was a scientific storm in America all through the late 50s about this thing out there in space because the astronomers were all watching it, and that was back when they weren't afraid to talk about it. It was in the science magazines. I mean, I had a subscription to, like, Popular Science, and hell, it was on the front cover of the magazine one day in, like, 1961. And I was really excited when I saw it because here's this giant red planet on the horizon of the California coast and a humongous tidal wave coming in towards the coast. And having grew up in the mountains of the Sierras, and this thing in the magazine, it said this tidal wave coming in was going to be at least 3 miles high. And I went in and showed it to everybody in the house, and they laughed and they said, look, it says right here, there's nothing to worry about. It won't be here for another 50 years. Hey, guess what? That 50 years has came and gone. And this baby's out there in the sky. They've been watching it. I watched it. And I can tell you, this thing has got so much trash coming around it. You know how we live in a solar system? We've got 9 planets and a big sun. This thing has got 7 planets and its own sun. The years as it went by and we watched it, it got bigger and bigger and bigger. And then finally, about 2008, we could see this thing like it was across the street. And we could see that it was a blazing hot ball of fire giving out sparkles of red iron oxide dust for thousands of miles in every direction. And you could see the planet circulating it. Now, I'll tell you one thing that I really am nervous about. I think this thing's got a planet like ours circling it. This is its own solar system. We're about to have a solar system come through the middle of our solar system. This can't be good. But unfortunately, it looks as though that's what's going to happen. We were looking at asteroids right close to this thing. There's asteroids that are floating around right near the, that are orbiting the main sun itself. These things appear to be about 500 miles across. This thing looks like a giant red teardrop-shaped dust cloud. and you can see once if you're able to see it up close like we did, you can see every speck out there. Now, these CIA people that I know say that we're not going to be that close to it when it goes past us. They're saying that in order to attain breakaway speed, when it comes up around the backside of the sun, its speed will at least double, possibly more, which will put it here earlier than everybody is saying it will, and that this thing will probably be about 20 million miles from us when it crosses in front of us. And then as soon as it flips us upside down, we're going to go into its debris field. These CIA guys told me that this pole shift will probably happen from start to finish in around 28 minutes. That doesn't give you a lot of warning. When you see that thing out there in the sky, you're going to have to run as fast as you can to your underground facility, because this is going to happen so fast. Now, see, here's another thing nobody's talking about. You've got this giant iron planet that they say is 47,000 miles across, getting ready to come up past us. And when it starts to approach us, it's going to start and have real serious effects.
So is it a planet or a failed star?
It's not a failed star. You know, I saw this thing up close. It did not look like a failed star. It looked just like our sun.
Right.
Okay. Would you call our sun a failed star?
No. Okay. Well, you had said planet. I wasn't sure if it was like a failed star, brown dwarf, or a full sun. So it's a full sun?
It looks to me like a miniature sun, just like the one we have. The only difference is our sun is giving off flames and stuff, and this one's doing the same thing as it, but it's giving off this red iron oxide cloud of dust around it, and until it got close, we couldn't even tell what was in there. We could see it was hot, and it looked like it was just a dull red when we were first able to discern it through the red cloud. But as it approached, it started to become more apparent that this thing is just orange hot.
Right.
And it's got this enormous, and I mean enormous, at least 50 or 100,000 miles on each side of it, this red dust cloud that goes all the way around it. I know when we were watching it, as it started to make the upward swing to approach behind our sun, it was amazing. The red dust cloud settled down. Instead of being round, it started to settle down into a V, like wings, upside-down wings.
Right.
And I thought, boy, I wonder if that's where the ancient Sumerians got the idea this thing had wings, because, you know, centrifugal force is a funny thing. When it comes back up around the planet, when we see it in the sky, my guess is it's going to look like it's got wings, because centrifugal force is going to be pulling the red iron oxide dust and particles out to one side. This thing's going to look like a big red dragon, exactly like all the ancient Sumerians and the Chinese and all the rest of them that had documented this thing's passing before. It didn't look like a white ball or a snow cloud or nothing. It looked like a big red iron oxide dust cloud with a superheated star in the middle of it. And I mean, you know, and that's what we've seen. So, you know, I don't care what anybody else says. There's a possibility. There's more than one thing out there. You know, I watched it through the Hubble Space Telescope, and when this thing looked like it was across the street, the Hubble got cut off and they encrypted it, and that was the end of any transmissions we had to watch. You know, if this thing picks up enough speed to make breakaway speed, then that means it's going to come past us. You know, this thing, according to what I was told, is that this thing is approximately 47,000 miles in diameter, you know, 4 or 5 times the size of the Earth, and it'll come past us, and we won't have a lot of warning, and we won't get to see it in the sky until it's on us. Now, I was told that the poles are not shifting at 42 miles a year. They're shifting at 42 miles a day. And the reason is because this planet is rolling over to face this thing. Now, when it goes by, it's not going to push our North Pole away. It's going to grab our southern pole with its northern pole, and it's going to be like somebody kicked this planet in the ass. That earthquake that it talks about in Revelations, when the opening of the sixth seal comes, from what I've been told, that's very accurate, because that's exactly what's going to happen. There's going to be a massive earthquake when it locks onto us. As it goes past us, we're going to follow it right upside down. The oceans are just going to be roaring from pole to pole, as you could well guess they would, because if you take a planet that's 7,000 miles across and roll it upside down in 30 minutes, you're going to have some real serious problems with wind and water. We should be preparing to expect this thing to show up anytime.
So this particular insider is stating in the most revealing terms that something ominous is heading our way that NASA has known about for decades. Nibiru, aka Planet X, and referred to by the Vatican as wormwood, has a mass that is 3 to 5 times the mass of Jupiter. Its composition is cesium, iron oxide, iron, oxygen, and ozone. And according to the interview by the Hubble Insider, it consists of 7 planets and moons that orbit it and innumerable asteroids. Its existence is known by all of the major governments of the world, and they are prepared, as I described earlier in this presentation.
John Moore. Speaker and trainer since 1986. Radio talk show host. Private investigator. Homicide detective since 1973. Homicide detective, State of Missouri. Decorated Vietnam veteran. John Moore now dedicates his life to investigating Planet X and the cover-up. His investigative prowess has allowed him to produce 2 major videos on the subject of Planet X, videos that are backed up by diligent research, documented history, and scientific fact. John also dedicates his time to doing public seminars in order to help warn the public and also to teach them to prepare for survival. His website contains valuable information and is at www.thelibertyman.com.
Being an investigator can mean a lot of things. When it comes to investigating homicides, it's basically 2 things: finding witnesses and taking statements, both of which I'm very good at. In my capacity teaching Missouri concealed carry training so people could get their permits to carry pistols concealed, I've met and debriefed about 24 Navy veterans, men that don't know each other. This is critical. When you interview witnesses who don't know each other, that are basically telling you almost the exact same story, that's very important. It should get your attention. It got my attention. Without exception, these men were all told the following: gentlemen, in your lifetimes, not your children's, not your grandchildren's, gentlemen, in your lifetimes, these oceans are going to come out of their basins, flooding all coastal areas worldwide. Now, they weren't told why. They're sitting in the folding chairs, getting this briefing. They weren't told why it would happen. They were just told that it would happen. There's a group in the United States called the Prophecy Club. They did something with me they'd never done with any other speaker. They sent me on 2 speaking tours in less than a year. The first one had to do with terrorism. The second one had to do with Nibiru, Wormwood, Planet X. So I'm in Detroit, and we got standing room only in this room. And I'm talking about Nibiru, and I'm talking about the Navy veterans living in the Arkansas, Missouri Ozarks. 3-hour presentation, 2 10-minute breaks. At the end of the first break, a gentleman walks up and introduces himself. He says, "John, I'm in the insurance industry. Myself, my co-workers, we've wondered for years, why is there such a cluster of thousands of Navy veterans in the zip codes, the counties of the Arkansas, Missouri Ozarks?" He said, "Now we know. Now we know." That's why I've bumped into so many of these men in these pistol classes, because when they retired, they wanted their families to be safe and move to one of the known safe areas. We'll be talking more about that later this afternoon. What are safe areas? Why are they safe? And what you can do to be safe yourself. And it doesn't apply just to the United States, it applies worldwide. When I was talking to Alexandra about coming here over the past 2 months, she initially asked me what my thoughts were when I first found out about this, and when I determined that, first of all, it was real, and second of all, that the United States government was not going to inform anybody. I told Alexandra I was very angry that our government would do nothing to inform our people, to help them be safe. I was very angry. That was 17 years ago. I've now come to an entirely different conclusion, however. If they had informed people in 1979 or 1980, it wouldn't change much. To create housing, fresh water, have places for people to stay and work in the middle of the country, that couldn't happen in 1979. It can't happen now. It's too much. That infrastructure does not exist and won't exist. Informing people what would happen would only lead to early death and early misery for people who are going to die anyway. That's the conclusion I've come to. It's my reality. In the meantime, I inform as many people as I can personally because it's the right thing to do, knowing full well that it's a small audience. Maybe 1 out of 100, maybe 1 out of 200 will understand this information, incorporate it into their being, and actually do something about it. A very tiny percentage. But I reach out to the ones I can, and they do what they're going to do. I take no responsibility for what they do. That's their choice. Something cataclysmic happens to this planet about every 3,600 years. And we, all of you listening and watching, we're the generation that's going to experience the next one. I'm absolutely convinced of it. The United States government is convinced of it. The Russian government's convinced of it. The Chinese government. You think they built those beautiful new cities in China for work programs? I don't believe so, no. They built them because they need them. They built them because they have no choice. You think the Russian government hollowed out entire mountains to house millions of people as a work program? I don't believe so. They did it because they had no choice.
Good evening and welcome back. It's Matt Rogers, 24th of the 8th, 2017. And again, I believe that NOAA is tracking the system. They know the weather patterns around the world are very much abrupt and they are changing because Nibiru is coming very close to our celestial body, the Earth. The UK government here as well, they've been lying to us all the time. It's just a stage. They just want to keep our eyes down. They don't want us to see those chemtrails up in the sky. The Prime Minister, again, is just lying to us. We are all being fooled. The powers that be control these people. These are puppeteers that just basically show and talk through the TV channels to give us disinformation all the time. Again, NASA, never a straight answer. They will just lie through those teeth as the powers that be control them. Coming out with some very bizarre excuses and lies as they can see and track Nibiru every single day. This guy on the image here is just a complete liar, phallicist. Let's take a look through inside these underground cities that they have been building for many years, stocking up and just carrying on, using our taxpayers' money to dig tunnels deep underground, because they know that the Nibiru system is getting closer now. And we do too, seeing those red reflections in the sky. They really truly think that they're going to be safe down there, packed away deep underground, until they think that the situation will be clear so they can get back up on the land again and start controlling the world with their banking system. These tunnels, these underground cities, are deep underground, hundreds of miles deep, different chambers and tunnels. The powers that be are doing this right under our noses every day. The government. They all think they've got a place to stay down there as well. Just look at the size of these indoor facilities for them to be kept safe. Packing food from Walmarts across all parts of the areas, the cities above on the land. They need to be exposed. We need to get all the information as well and start speaking out the truth. Again, the governments from all over the world, they need to say something now for everybody to prepare for this incoming event. Everybody deserves to know what's going down.
The U.S. government is not taking care of their people. They're not building shelters for the American population. They have built very extensive, very nice shelters for their own people, the military, government officials, but not for the American population. Now, I've heard, and I haven't verified, that Norway has notified their people to a certain extent. I interviewed a man from Switzerland, and he says, John, it's not quite real common, but somewhat common knowledge in Switzerland about the violently rising ocean levels. So there's a whole subcurrent of people worldwide that know about this, governments that know about this and are making plans and spending hundreds of millions, billions of dollars to prepare for this event. One of the things I came across in my research was a tribe in Africa called the Dagon people. They have a cave that's got images on the roof of the cave showing our solar system, complete with Pluto, that they've had for many, many centuries. We didn't know Pluto existed till about 100 years ago, by the way, 110 years ago. We didn't know Pluto even existed, but it's been on this cave in Africa for many, many centuries. It's part of their religious beliefs to maintain that cave. And they appoint one person for their lifetime to be the guardian of that cave and that knowledge. If there's anything I can get across to the people watching this DVD, this film, is that you need to pay heed. You need to do your own independent research. You need to come to your own conclusions. You can believe that China built massive, brand new, shiny cities for tens of millions of people as a work project, or you can believe they built them because they have no choice. I tend to believe the latter. You can believe that the CIA moved thousands of employees, their families, their furniture, their dogs, 1,700 miles for no good reason, or you can believe they did it because they had no choice. The Denver airport is a fascinating place. I haven't been inside. I've driven past it half a dozen times. I don't really want to go in there. They moved enough dirt there to build a brand new Panama Canal. That's a lot of dirt. Millions of cubic yards, cubic meters of dirt. There's basically an underground city there. When you start looking at Nibiru, one of the first things people want to find out if their aunt's home near the ocean is going to be underwater, if their home near the ocean is going to be underwater. That's an understandable thing. It's a very human thing. You want to know if people you care about are going to be safe. There's a lot more to it than that, however. A lot more. A lot of people, Americans, I do private consultations, and I'm certainly willing to do private consultations here in Europe. They look at these maps, at this map, the map that was up there a moment ago, and they say, oh, there's a safe place. The Appalachian Mountains, good high elevation, plenty of rainfall, mild winters, and I agree with them. Great altitude, plenty of water, mild winters. Appalachian Mountains are, well, how can I describe this? You got Tennessee and North Carolina, South Carolina, right down where those states meet. Here's the problem with the Appalachian Mountains. What is this there? Oh, a pointer. Oh, how neat. They're going to make me high-tech anyway. The Appalachian Mountains are right here. And the Blue Ridge Parkway is right where the water stops. Pretty nifty, huh? Totally lost my place there. Here's the problem. You've got 75, 80 million people along in here. Basically, here's Washington, D.C. is about here. Boston's about here. It's one continuous city between Boston and Washington, D.C. is basically one city of maybe 50 million people. And then between here and here, you've got maybe 75 million people, many millions of which will figure out what's happening in time to get in their cars and take off to wherever they think might be safe, which is probably going to be the Appalachian Mountains. That's the problem with the Appalachian Mountains. In Europe, you've got similar situations. Most of France will be underwater, parts of Germany, and so forth. Millions of people, they'll figure out this water's coming, and they want to go someplace safe. Well, the Swiss Alps, Bavaria, so forth. If they have time, they're going to go there. You can count on it. One of the things I write about in my paper, No Need for Panic, there we go, is the government's plural, not just the American government, but all these governments. As we get close to the event, there's going to be something happen. Maybe Ebola, maybe terrorist attacks, maybe a combination economic collapse. Whatever the event or events are, it will be so severe that when the government tells people to stay at home to be safe, almost all of them will stay at home to be safe, because that will appear to be the right thing to do, the proper thing to do, to be safe, to stay home, as opposed to going to Bavaria or the Swiss Alps or any high point.
The following is an image of the United States Doomsday Map, posted in Forbes magazine. The Forbes magazine is the magazine of the wealthy, the elite, and government leaders around the world. The world's greatest scientists, geologists, seismologists, volcanists, NASA, and astronomers as well, have done their best to predict what our new Earth will most likely look like after the Nibiru crossing event. They have made these doomsday maps for each country around the world. This is their best calculated guess at what the new United States will most likely look like in their collective opinion. It is the map the elite are using to determine their safe places in the USA.
By the time they do figure out that they need to go to those places, it'll be too late. The government's job, in their opinion, is to protect themselves, with the exceptions, of course, of what the Chinese are doing for their chosen people, what Russians are doing with their chosen people. And once again, that's kept from the public. Most people in China don't know about these brand new cities. If they do, they don't think anything about it. Most people in Russia don't know about the underground cities in the Ural Mountains. When the time comes, the designated people will be moved to the new cities in China, to the underground cities in the Ural Mountains. What will England do? Well, they got some I don't know if I'd call them mountains, they got them hills, and they're already moving critical infrastructure, critical government offices to the Highlands of Scotland. That's already happening. The royal family will probably take off for the Rocky Mountains in Canada, I imagine, someplace they think is safe. All these things are happening behind the scenes without public knowledge, without public discourse, and we'll continue to do that. Our outreach here with video on YouTube, it's going to save a lot of lives. A lot of people will watch this and say, that's a bunch of silliness. Let's go watch a football game. Others will watch it and they will move forward and do their own homework and do their own research and come to their own independent conclusions, separate and apart from what John Moore says. Don't take my word for it. Do your own homework. Come to your own conclusions. Read, read, read. In the States, and I know Europe doesn't have the same problem we do, most adults under age 50 in the United States, for them, reading is not fun. Reading is not pleasurable. If they do it at all, it's because they have no choice. That's most adults in the United States under age 50. And it's a consequence of public education and what they've done to us. By design, by the way. By design. But for those who can read and will read, there's a lot to know. The bibliography at the end of my DVD, you're going to read 20,000 pages or more. I was working with a gentleman about a month ago. All this information he just found out about 5 or 6 months ago. And he just feels absolutely overwhelmed. He says, John, it's just too much. I don't have time. I can't do everything that can be done. I said, that's okay. You do what you can do. Don't worry about what you can't do. You take joy in what you can do. We all have limitations. A 20-year-old soldier has physical limitations. An 80-year-old grandmother has physical limitations. They're different. A 20-year-old soldier can carry a 100-pound backpack all day long. The 80-year-old grandmother may carry 2 liters of water all day long. But they both got limitations. Everybody's got financial limitations, some greater than others. We'll talk about this more a little bit later. And the most important thing about preparedness, which is your spiritual preparedness. One of my consultation clients, he owns a business he inherited from his father with 100 employees. That's quite a payroll to meet every week, which he does. He has the financial ability to buy semi-tractor trailer loads of food and supplies and tools, pretty much anything he wants, which he has done. But it's never enough because his spiritual house is not in order. It will never be enough. No matter what he gets, it will never be enough because the spiritual house is not in order. Most important thing you can do for yourself, quite frankly. And move on from there. Once you've looked at Nibiru, Planet X, Wormwood, once you come and understand it, you can get carried away with the overwhelming knowledge that you've acquired, with the knowledge that the world that you know will cease to exist. As one man said, federal government employee, he says, John, I'm too old to learn how to live all over again, but that's where we're going to be. We'll be living the lifestyle of our grandparents, our great-grandparents, an agrarian lifestyle, growing our own food, not going any farther than we can walk in half a day because you want to get back at the end of the day. I know in the States, when they were setting up our states and counties, they set up enough counties that the county seat would be half a day horse ride from the farthest location in the county. So a man could ride his horse to the county seat, conduct business, and get back before dark. Before the 1930s in the States, government was at the county level. Very little involvement with the state government, almost no involvement at all with the federal government before the Great Depression in the 1930s. We're going to go back to that in the States, in Europe, in Asia. Government will be, if it exists at all, government will be at the local level. Now, there'll be a federal government that thinks they're in charge, but they won't be. They won't have the communications. They won't have the ability to go out and do much at all. There's other possibilities involving geopolitics, what the Russians may want to do and what the Chinese may want to do. That's another whole area that could be another whole lecture, which I'm qualified to talk about, but we're not here to talk about that. Now, your emphasis has to be on your family, on your community. One of the things I warn people about is what I call the island concept of preparedness. My family and I, we're going to get our 40 acres, 80 acres, put a fence around it, and it's us against the world. That's a disaster waiting to happen, is all that is. That's all that is. You need to be part of a community of like-minded people, as we say. And after the event, there's going to be a lot of like-minded people that will figure out real quick that they need to come together as a community. The community I live in, Crawford County, Missouri, we have a local preparedness group. We have monthly training, things like first aid, communications, map and compass reading, CPR. We have a movie every Friday night, which is a social event. Get together and get to know each other. Have fun. Have some hot popcorn. It's all part of building a community. Do not think that you and your family can hold off the world. That's a disaster waiting to happen. If you think you can do that, you're wrong. You're absolutely wrong. You need to be part of a community that will come together as a community to survive together.
So, where is Planet X right now? What is it doing? What will it do next? Researcher Terrell follows Nibiru diligently, tracking it daily. He offers technical and scientific data and makes this data available on his website at www.terrell03.com.
Hello YouTube, newsletter and survival group subscribers. This is Terrell from terrell03.com. Today is August 24th, 2017. This is the update report connected to volume 34. Seismic indicators say Earth is moving near the end. It's the same report, near the end of the first Earth change lull period. I mean, we're right there, nearing the bottom. Black Star is in the Libra constellation, just below the ecliptic plane. It has Jupiter and Saturn on either side. We can look at the solar system, show you where we're at. The Black Star position. See, Libra is right here in the background. See, when I'm saying it's in Libra, it doesn't mean it's way out here, way that far away. This thing is just about where my cursor is. Relative to the sun, it's just about right here. But Libra is the background constellation. So being on just about right here relative to the sun, I mean, it's right here, you can see we're right close to the 90-degree angle. That's why we're getting these lower values. We passed between the sun and the Black Star on May the 9th. Then we started coming around this way, and the magnetic portal connection between Earth and the Black Star lengthened That's what caused the dramatic lull period moving through this period, less electromagnetism. Combination of Jupiter and Saturn in the same quadrant of space with the black star sends a lot of the redirected solar electromagnetism. The energy is going to these planets that are in near proximity as we're racing away. So that gives us less electromagnetism being injected into our planet. That's going to change when we get right in this area here. The black star is coming in this direction. It's going to eventually reach perihelion between the Sun and Sagittarius, back over here behind us. So we're moving through the area of space where the black star is heading, moving through September. We're going to be beyond that in October. That's why I'm predicting big seismicity, big volcanism for right here in September. Mini lull in October, and then the biggest stuff of the year will be coming as we're passing behind the Sun relative to the black star. So that's where we are in the solar system. Might have to pull that window up again. I'll leave it open.
Please keep in mind what was stated before, that it is very difficult to precisely predict what the Planet X system will do, or when, because of its sporadic orbit and the influence of other planets near it. This is why constant tracking is necessary. Terrell does weekly research and makes his reports available online every week, should you wish to follow it.
Hello everyone, welcome to Skywatch Media News. This is the second week of September 2017. There has been a number of prognosticators in years past who have placed dates for the near-Earth passage of the Nemesis Nibiru system. But as a researcher and analyst of Planet X, and one who follows the teachings of the spoken word, I do not, nor will I at any time, place dates for future events of such severe magnitude as the near-Earth passage of a massive planetary system. As I have already mentioned, the emphasis should be on the indicators which warn of its arrival, the ever-increasing intensification of Earth changes now happening on planet Earth. Only those in utter denial, who carry a blind eye, will argue the obvious, which is that great changes are now upon us. Several of these changes are indicators that point to an increased Earth wobble, which then will forewarn us that a pole shift is in the works. Now, they can argue and dispute what's happening until the end, but all the indicators tell us that the Nibiru system is arriving into our inner solar system. Everything is falling into place as was foretold from the time that we first learned that something ominous was coming our way. One researcher who has been following this system closely is Marshall Masters. Many of you know about his work or have read any number of books that he has written on the subject. He has indicated that Nibiru, which is the outermost planet of the Nemesis system, has crossed the orbit of Earth on the other side of the Sun and is approaching perihelion in its orbit. The Earth wobble has been observed for the past few years and has steadily gotten more severe as the system gets closer. The Inuit elders of the Arctic frontier had warned NASA about the tilting of the Earth axis in 2011. Who would know more about this than those who follow the sun and the stars as a guide in determining the changes that are occurring on Earth?
Ikakang ni makonik taon na nito naratuwa. Kukirang na inaktun. Yaman na narunangit igini nga mana udsok narunangit to kaw yaman aktong. Ugdunga tawang na pukto na sawlak to tayo sa mani awalaman. Kaw yaman lakay karwatunga. Kaya udyat lakata ka sila. Kadoy na balok si mga ramang tanali. Kasi malakit na kasi kanya. Taban mga tabanin yung tao kumatana. Kasi malakit na kasi kanya. Tabang anak kasungo kami. Kasi wala kong karuan lang kami. Wala kong tarapin nito. Kasi yan kaya ba kanya nagparok sa mga tanan nung naman. Kaya ba ubaruli pa ang tapaw. Ubarparok sa mga Paluk sa mga nung itapaw, pakipaluk sa mga tanda nung nabog. Isa mga katawag ko, kaya ba tagataan na ukaw sa kanya malaki katatataan sa kanya. Sila.
Nung nakayabot, kityakluk pa lang nga, kasi naligalasyon, kangan lalo ng mga kakao nga. Siya ko yung itakakisyan eh, kawin si pa niya nga. Siya kinak, kapag nga, nanubulik mga sa ano nipikatalak si mga kalawangat nuna yawatan na kasi naligala si mga kilugo mga nauyamit siya nung nga takay mga sakin
sakin tayo ako si tito ang dito sukay ma nuna kikitlok pa naman sakin at paunak pa dito ng ano aking anak sa mga Pukul si Bartok. Kalau kakatiak pukul yung ako naman siya. Hindi man nasangay ako lugaruan. Kasi ano, ang naksangay nakpangon naktutukaw. Ayaw ko nilapagayap sa diyong ayaw saktaw na kamarit ko. Ang niyo pinitilok. Manalang minatok sa kuya wala ako Huwag kaya kang niyakangan. Tamak ko, at yung naktangin. Ikong nga doon, iman na wala ako sa mayakarwa. Kaya man na yun nila. Ang wala ko sa mga minata, ang marala sa mga kuta. Tamak ko, ugdugan ang makanoy liwatak sa malagat kasi. Sila kanoy liwatak. Ilano na kanoy liwatak sa malagat. Kaya man na ulak sa iman na siyang watak ko ninig. Abong nga tulad iman nabidwa sa kaya kalakot. Iman na di kaya ngarak sa bit. Tawag ko na lang na indo. Ano kita na mga kwatak ko yung ano. Wag niya katiya ko na toro siya ma dito ka doon eh. Nagkisuyak to hayo yun ang masawa ko na. Abang sa amin natin ano kaya araw to ni tayo na ano kaya yung ito hayo sa may oktahan na tawag nga. Ano ka sangiyo araw magaw yun na to ni tawag nga. Tuman na sila ko yun doon nito. Wag niyo aji pa do araw.
So there it is. The elders who were interviewed across the north all said the same thing. The sky has changed. The stars, the sun, and the moon have all changed, affecting the temperature, even affecting the way the wind blows. So it seems, according to their astute observations, that Earth has shifted, wobbled, or tilted to the north. Within the past few months, the Earth's wobble has become greater, with a shift of about 8 degrees north. Coincidentally, the 2017 storm track has also shifted about 8 degrees north. This is an indication that changes are upon us. In the past few weeks, the extreme weather has greatly intensified across the planet, in another indication that changes are upon us. What is happening along the coasts of South America is an indication of how intense this earth wobble phenomenon has become. The tidal movement of the oceans, which we call spring and king tides, are behaving in mysterious ways. Abnormality that has manifested and increased in the past decade. This is a certain indication of an axis shift, and therefore indicators of the arrival of the Planet X system in our inner solar system. The sloshing of the ocean tides along coastlines can only be caused by an outside gravitational force. It is not a product of weather manipulation or the result of unusual wind patterns in the upper atmosphere. The earth wobble tides along the coastlines are brought on by the presence of a celestial intruder, as was forewarned in the prophecy of Saint Hildegard. As you read the passage from this prophecy, it must remind you of the devastation of Hurricane Harvey and Irma, both of which have caused great misery and death across the Caribbean and the United States. In just the past month, various parts of the world have been seeing tidal flooding, with areas permanently underwater, causing inhabitants to seek refuge where it can be found. The king tides, as well as other earth changes, will continue to worsen as Planet X approaches ever closer. The facts do not lie, as they are indicators of what is upon us. As Planet X comes out from behind the Sun, as it crosses the point of perihelion and travels in an outbound journey, it will pass between our Earth and the Sun, at which time its passage will trigger the 7 years of tribulation, as stated in the book of Isaiah, whereby the Earth will stagger to and fro. This will then be the time when cataclysmic changes will take place on Earth. Now, I should point out that although there will be celestial warning signs in the heavens in September, later this month, in the constellation Virgo, whereby Nibiru will appear in the winter months, the catastrophic influence of the celestial nemesis will not be fully known until which time the intruder passes between our Earth and the Sun. So here's what I am saying so that you may understand and grasp the significance of this time. The passage of this great intruder is dependent on the signs of 2017 and the visible manifestation of this planetary object, or objects as it may be, before the great event will come to pass. I cannot tell you with any certainty when that day will occur, as it is entirely dependent on the signs here on Earth and in the heavens. But what I can tell you is to keep looking for those signs, as they are certainly being manifest at this time. Take a look at these comparison images of Nibiru, which were enlarged by digital enhancement to show its proximity between April of 2016 and March of this year. As you can see, its circumference has become bigger, indicating that it is coming closer to the Earth. This, then, is an indicator that something is approaching. The great warning which will be known is a shift in consciousness, whereby the period of tribulation will begin. So now would be the most important period in your lifetime in which to get your spiritual house in order. One of the signs that foretells of its coming is the societal chaos we now see in our communities and cities across the world, as well as the economic hard times that many are suffering, which fits into the 2017 to 2020 window of passage for Planet X, as was described by government insiders as far back as the year 1989. Remember this: the best way to know of an impending cataclysm is to follow the signs and indicators as I have described them in this video. Try not to worry over dates, as the actual indicators are the major signs of an earth wobble, the abnormal shuffling of the tides, an unusual uptick in seismic and volcanic activity, and the increasing intensity of extreme weather.
Los Angeles is dealing with the biggest wildfire in the city's history.
Hundreds of residents are being forced to evacuate their homes.
California's governor has declared a state of emergency, with several other large wildfires burning on the state's west coast.
The western U.S. is being hit by another type of natural disaster, wildfire.
The sheer numbers are staggering. 100 fires in total, around 80 of them considered large.
In 9 western states. Did you get that? 75 fires in 9.
Can you also talk about, last week saw virtually unprecedented floods across South Asia.
The Eagle Creek fire has charred some 30,000 acres in the heart of Oregon's scenic Columbia River Gorge.
Jennifer, it's hard to wrap your head around this. Again, really hard to find the words to describe this. We're talking about this luscious, pristine green gorge now turning orange and red, billowing black smoke.
It's like nothing I've ever, really ever seen.
I knew there was fires going on, but I didn't think it was going to be as bad as it is right now. I didn't realize the whole town was going to be shut down, which is kind of spooky.
That glowing smoke just rolling and billowing into the sky.
I haven't seen one this big. I've seen a lot of them, but I've not seen one this big.
And it really is even just hard to find the words to describe this. A true hell on earth, almost apocalyptic looking, the glow from those flames.
Altogether, the state's wildfires have scorched more than 1,000 square miles. That's about 1/3 of all the land burning across the United States.
Whether it's the floods down in Houston or Hurricane Irma that's threatening Florida, wildfires across the west, or extreme drought on the plains, we cannot deny that our climate is changing.
We're still struggling to fully comprehend its aftermath.
After one of the heaviest downpours in U.S. history, the storm is generating an amount of rain that would normally be seen only once in more than 1,000 years.
Mother Nature is angry. We've never seen the kind of damage, the biblical flooding.
But the number of natural disasters has nearly quadrupled since 1970.
Harvey hit Texas with Old Testament wrath, a deluge along the state's Gulf Coast.
First of all, we've never seen 2 Category 4 plus, that would be Harvey at 4 and Irma at 5, smote into the United States of America in 1 year.
So that's enough energy that it pulled the ocean out from the land.
And it was like that for almost half a day.
Dogs playing where it's normally feet deep.
This is normally entirely underwater.
This video from the Bahamas went viral, showing a normally sapphire sea gone as far as the eye can see.
This has been a once-in-a-lifetime tidal event.
The force of the approaching hurricane is so strong that despite all this ocean spray, it's actually sucked a lot of the water out of Sarasota
This was the
Bay.
headline in Barbuta's main newspaper today, Destruction Unreal. This was Barbuda before Irma hit, as you can see, just lovely. This is Barbuda today. The Prime Minister of Antigua and Barbuda says that Barbuda is now barely habitable.
And last year alone, 24.2 million people were displaced by sudden onset disasters, 3 times as many as by conflict and violence.
Hard as it is to believe, another hurricane is heading right toward Barbuda right now. Hurricane Jose, it's currently...
Another news this morning, Mexico has been dealt with a deadly 1-2 punch, with Hurricane Katia making landfall overnight as a Category 1 storm on the eastern Gulf Coast, one day after an 8.1 earthquake struck the country's southern Pacific.
Shows how the earthquake caused violent shaking inside an office building. Mexico's president...
I've experienced many earthquakes, but nothing like this.
And just as the hurricane season gears up to batter the other side of the country, the strongest earthquake in modern history may just be the beginning of a very difficult end to 2017.
This is, nature is unleashed. She's drawing all her energy, these hurricanes. 37 consecutive hours of 185 miles per hour. We've never seen anything like that.
Over the past 10 years, we've seen 100-year storms every few years. We've seen hurricanes repeatedly besiege the Gulf and East Coast. Historic droughts are becoming common, and water shortages are routine. Unprecedented disasters are becoming the new normal.
Our first glimpse of the blackened, still smoky crust the fire left on some land here in southern Alberta. The fire started with a lightning strike 2 weeks ago and has since exploded in size.
The yellow, otherworldly haze is because of several large wildfires that are burning in southern Canada and the northern Rockies.
The skies glow orange at night as the flames burn on. Families wake up to ash on their windshields.
Like a sunset almost, evening light in the middle of the day. It was pretty strange.
It was kind of a unique surprise when we woke up today and the sky had this amber glow. Just made everything look a little bit surreal.
People in Oregon and Washington are reporting ash fall from the forest fires on a scale comparable to that what happened when Mount St. Helens erupted.
It's like being in hell, to tell you the truth. It's like being in hell. It's surreal. It seems like the province of British Columbia is burning up right now.
A ball of light shooting across the sky.
That bright light splashing across the sky in British Columbia rattled those who saw it.
But there are also reported sightings from Saskatchewan, as well as Washington, Idaho, and even as far as Montana.
An RCMP reported receiving dozens of calls from concerned individuals. Reports suggest it landed around 200 kilometers west of Calgary.
Whoa! Era tak vício, Aze.
Well, the sun has unleashed its largest flare in over a decade, and its effects are now being felt here on Earth.
In recent weeks, we have seen the devastating effects of extreme weather on Earth. And these abnormal solar flares reveal that extreme weather is also happening in space. The sun has produced 6 sizable flares in the same region since Monday.
Both flares were massive, but the second is the largest on record since 2000.
The sun is currently heading toward a low activity period in its natural 11-year cycle, which makes these events all the more puzzling to scientists.
With science forecasting a dramatic rise in both the frequency and severity of disasters,
the more wicked these storms around America and planet Earth are going to become.
The picture's almost apocalyptic.
Nature is also taking a devastating toll elsewhere.
The pictures that are emerging from right across the region in Nepal and India and Bangladesh are absolutely devastating.
one country, Bangladesh. A third of Bangladesh is underwater.
The monsoon rains are becoming more intense, stronger and more devastating year upon year.
And from one weather extreme to another, in California, residents there are feeling the heat. This week alone, thousands of lightning bolts lit up the sky in the southern part of the state, sparking more fires.
More than 40,000 lightning bolts have flashed across the Southern California sky this week, all within a 24-hour period. The Golden State has been in the middle of a record-breaking heat wave, leaving climate scientists scratching their heads.
I've never seen it rain this hard at the beach. It's pouring.
And it's about to get way worse.
Oh, oh, wow. Oh, look at that. Oh my God. Holy moly.
Part of this crazy weather system, a quick-moving storm left quite the destruction as it rolled through Santa Barbara.
Oh God.
Others sought refuge in stores.
Oh my God!
Just look at these terrifying images.
Things were literally just zooming by. Big shingles, fences, chairs, trash cans.
And yeah, it was quite a scene. I don't remember ever seeing a storm quite like that.
We're out boating on Lake Powell yesterday, got a nasty surprise as a microburst.
Yeah, the people who boat around there say they're used to keeping an eye out for changing conditions. What blew through yesterday, though, they said was way more violent than usual.
She said she's never seen anything like what happened there yesterday.
We're here every year and I've never seen a storm that bad.
She shot video on her phone as the microburst blew across the lake, throwing waves up against the houseboat she was on.
Of lightning in the Santa Clarita Valley. We got a number of videos from viewers showing the same sight in areas like Lancaster, Palmdale, and into the San Fernando Valley.
What is that? It's like a lightning. Whoa.
They all showed a massive cloud with lightning moving through. So many strikes inside that it almost looked like one of those lightning ball toys.
As I speak here, there are 1.5 million acres ablaze across Oregon, Washington, California, Idaho, Montana, Colorado, Wyoming, Nevada, and Utah. This year is virtually guaranteed to be the worst fire season in history.
In Montana, multiple wildfires scorched.
A different natural disaster that's ravaging the great state of Montana. In every corner of our state, Montana has felt the impacts of wildfires. In Montana, we're experiencing a historic drought.
A serious drought has swept southern Europe this summer. Some farmers in Italy and Spain are predicting the worst crop yields in 20 years.
In the Vatican, for the first time ever, they've already shut down the fountains in solidarity.
Including those in St. Peter's Square because of Italy's drought.
Flash flooding has swamped the Italian city of Livorno, killing at least 6 people after 400 millimeters of rain fell in just 4 hours. The mayor has accused the government of underestimating.
An out-of-control bushfire has forced the evacuation of staff from the Navy base at Jervis Bay.
As we go to air tonight, there are more than 120 fires burning, including one on the south coast at emergency level.
Temperature has dramatically plunged, but tonight fires are still burning. And now there's a new problem. Wild westerlies have grounded up to 100 flights at Sydney Airport.
The danger, of course, is the fact that all of this is happening and it's only mid-September.
North Korea's tests are a threat to international peace and stability.
It's a global threat and requires a global response.
국제사회의 강화와 안정에
Across America, the clockwork of the cosmos turned day into night.
Hello ladies and gentlemen, I am Dr. Claudia Albers, Planet X researcher and professional physicist, and today I'd like to bring to you another one of my articles. This one is entitled "The Planet X System is Here," and it is huge. Now there's a lot of evidence suggesting that Planet X, which was discovered by Dr. Robert Harrington, is now in the inner solar system, and I have written several articles about this. And also that it's affecting our planet in several ways. Now, this brown dwarf star contains many thousands of objects in it. It's not just one brown dwarf star. And it is possible that it's not actually the only system that has converged on the sun at this time. Now, the dead star, which nowadays I call Nemesis, which was found in the constellation Orion in 1983, was coming in towards the sun then. And the fact that both Planet X and Nemesis converged on the sun at the same time, which is now, this suggests that possibly they are part of the same system, which would make this system extremely large. Now, the ancient records talk of objects coming into the solar system and causing cataclysmic events on Earth, and even talk about the creation of the asteroid belt. Now this is the blue brown dwarf that was captured by Scott Sion in May of 2017 with his telescope, and he photographed it. So this is a stellar core. In other images, like this one here, this came from an astronomer in Germany. You can see that the core of the object is solid because it has grooves in it and it has this material attached to it, which it obviously ionizes, turns it into the gaseous plasma and exchanges with other stars. We believe this star here is the sun. There is this pink magenta gaseous plasma around which this object seems to be gathering on its surface, and this is what they do. They form these plasma connections between main sequence stars like the sun and themselves, and they eventually gather enough plasma and energy. They gather energy by absorbing light, and eventually they are able to ionize the plasma that they have gathered and start producing light. And I call that rejuvenation. And I've always thought that this was the sun, but now with the new images, I'm not sure that all of these objects that we see here are the sun. There seems to be a huge white star with a huge magenta star, and this coronal gas plasma may be coming from that other star. They're all very close to the sun and often are seen aligned with it. Now we do know that we have to have a star that emits this color in order to get our atmosphere to look like this. You can see even here on the cars that the light that they are reflecting is magenta colored. And this cannot come from our sun unless something drastic has happened to it. This is likely to come from another star that has invaded our solar system, possibly part of the Planet X system that has come in, possibly came in as a dark stellar core, and it then rejuvenated and started emitting this type of light. And here we see the sky. It looks orange. Again, the sun does not emit this light. This has to come from another star. And this comes from Neil Oakley. This image, this one was taken by Scott. And this is another Neil Oakley image, which I saw in Prep Orsie's recent video. And I had a lot to say and think regarding this image, because if you look at it, it looks like a white star, but then the edge is sort of pinky colored, and then there's yellow around that. There's a bright star here. It's very small compared with this. There seems to be another one there, bright and orangey colored. The sky is orangey and pink, and these are not natural colors for planet Earth. It must come from stars emitting other lights. And this is one of Prep's testing images based on this one. And you can see that the brightest object is definitely this, because whatever bright object would look darker in this inverse image. And he did point out a lot of the objects that seem to be aligned on the sides of these. These are, of course, the smaller stellar cores with they have dark centers and ring-like envelopes. So I took this image, and after thinking about it, I came up with this. I thought, this is what we are likely to have. A large white star, a large pink star behind it, and a large yellow star behind it. And it could be the yellow star is the sun, because the sun is supposed to look yellow in our atmosphere, because it actually emits white light, but the blue is scattered out of the white light, so it would look yellow inside the Earth's atmosphere. But we cannot be sure that it is the sun. This could be the sun. It's difficult to see the correct perspective. So this seems to be the brightest star, so it could be the sun. But I see all these objects aligned with these stars, so I started thinking that possibly that's the sun, because we usually see these stars around our sun. So this would be the side view. We'd have the white, let's go back there. We have the white, the pink, the yellow, and possibly the sun, with these smaller ones aligned around it, because these stars seem to have congregated around the sun, because the sun is the source of the energy. The sun is the bright, living main sequence star. These objects were most probably dead when they arrived in the solar system. They absorbed energy and plasma from the sun until they were able to rejuvenate. And so there are these smaller ones, the orange star, the brightly star. This could be the sun, or this could be the sun. I cannot be completely sure. I think it's more likely that the sun is aligned with the rest of these stars, but I cannot be completely sure. And this would be what the ecliptic view from Earth would be. We'd have to turn it on its side. So this now is the north of the ecliptic. This is the south of the ecliptic. If this is the sun, these stars are on the side, and then all of these smaller stellar cores are aligned with them in this way. And if we then look at the motion that these objects seem to have, it seems to be close to a polar orbit. So if we have the sun here, they would move more or less like this, but I've tilted it a little bit because it's not completely polar. And then there's orbital precession. So this would explain why the objects are sometimes seen on the ecliptic, which means when this object is here, we'd be able to see it next to the sun. Or if it's back there, we'd be able to see it there next to the sun on the left. And they are then able, because the orbit precesses, and they are so close to the sun, they must orbit extremely fast. They are able to appear in front of the sun when the orbit precesses to the point that it passes in front of the sun. But these are not the only objects. I've only placed the pink or the magenta colored one and the white one together and aligned here. But we do have others. We have the blue brown dwarf that was originally observed about this position, slightly behind the sun. It possibly has an orbital, an orbit like this, a polar type orbit, inclined to one side. But we do have objects that seem to follow the ecliptic as well. There was one found recently about the same size as Jupiter that Scott found. And so I've drawn it in because we have large numbers of these objects. These are the larger ones that we've observed close to the sun. Some of them seem to actually stay stationary. At least they seem to when they first arrive at the sun, and they're still dark because we see them being illuminated by the CMEs. And we have some images of those. We see one here. You can see how large this object is. It's at least the size of the sun. Here's a close-up of it. You can see it's a dark stellar core, not emitting light. We see that the CME is directed towards it, and it makes its presence obvious. Then there was this one. This one was from July 23rd. There was a large CME. These objects seem to provoke the sun into having large CMEs because, of course, it's understandable because these objects have high magnetic fields. They pull on the sun's magnetic field. And when you pull on the sun's magnetic field, then the sun is not able to hold on to its plasma. And actually, we get the sort of huge reaction, a huge explosive reaction of the sun, which is actually very dangerous for Earth if it is Earth directed. In other words, if this object was in front of the sun and the CME was in that direction, the Earth would be in the line of fire, and this would be dangerous for us. Now, some of these are extremely large. As you can see, this one is at least 3 times the size of the sun. And it's not alone. There are several of these smaller stellar cores in front of it and seem to possibly be attached to it. There's some there, there's some there. They are actually everywhere. There are some here. And this here actually seems to be an object itself. And this object seems to have made a permanent connection with the sun, a very strong particle flux transfer connection between the sun and this object. And it has been there for years. I've been looking at this for years. This object seems to have a powerful reaction. It seems to be emitting a lot of material that comes out in this direction. And possibly a lot of the smaller stellar cores are in that stream and possibly taking advantage of the plasma that streams out in this direction, or they are maybe attracted to them. So, in conclusion, the Planet X system seems to have arrived and possibly been here for a long time. But it has not come alone. It seems to have brought a system with innumerable objects in it. This system seems to be made of old or dead stars, which we call brown dwarf stars or stellar cores. These objects are not likely to ever leave, but they are destabilizing our sun, and that poses great risk for Earth in the form of huge solar flares and CMEs. This is Dr. Claudia Albers, Planet X physicist. Thank you for watching.